What up, big caballers? Hang out with me today while we talk about some of my creative process. Here we go. What up, big caballers? I just wanted to give a little video today about my process during this world building thing. I mean, obviously there's 1,000 different ways to do it, and start here, start there, do this, do that, whatever. But this is how I do it, or have been doing it anyway. If you don't know, we as Geek Cabal, with an outside creative who is a dungeon master in a 5e campaign that I'm playing in when work allows. But he's super creative, super smart. So we brought him in to help, and he's very gracious to do so. But yeah, we are creating a world and perhaps even a system and or system agnostic adventure settings. But we're creating an entire world, ground up, literally. So this is how it started for me. I created a character on D&D Beyond, a 5e character, obviously. He was a halfling who was like a librarian. And that turned into a museum curator. And that turned into both. And that turned into a Smithsonian kind of thing, which turned into the Abstrusa. The Abstrusa being kind of a Smithsonian kind of thing. Library, learning, teaching, museum, conservancy, that. So I had the Abstrusa, so there needs to be a city for it to live in. And then that city needed a country, and that country needed a continent, and that continent needed a world. And there we go. I don't want to go into specifics, but you know that there's continents, there's, you know, ethnicities and biodiversity and things, natural resources, crazy geology and lots of things like the Abstrusa, associated with the Abstrusa, the things. But most importantly, it's just that you have an idea that you feel strongly about in some way. You then parlay that into the next step, whatever the next step may be. I mean, instead of my halfling, and I think right now he's a knowledge domain cleric, I believe, because that's what is available to me in D&D Beyond. But one of the things that I'm doing in this creative process is creating a new character class. I think I'm going to call it Sage, perhaps, which was the idea of this fourth creative that we brought in to team up with us and help us do this. The idea of calling it a Sage, that is. It's a class that he's actually made up years ago for his homebrew stuff. So we'll take from that what we will and add to it what we need. But we will, you know, develop a class for Idea Stillwater, our halfling conservator, as it were. So, but anyway, you create your ideas, whatever race, ethnicity, gender, or non-gender, or whatever it may be that you've created. Gelatinous goo, monk, which is favorite of Chad. He keeps talking about wanting to do a gelatinous monk, which reminds me of felonious monk for some reason. But I digress. You create whatever you create, and then if you feel strongly about that, you then let that inspire you. Probably begin with backstory, which actually is, also how Ideas began, was, me creating his backstory. But as a part of his backstory, he ended up being, this fancy librarian, as it were. And it just tumbled from there, picking up momentum and growing ever bigger like the proverbial snowball. But let that happen to you. Just let it guide you. That's the thing. I think oftentimes, which sometimes you need this too, depending on what you need for your story or your world or whatever it is you're working on. But I think too often, and to the detriment of the creative process, you start off with a fixed goal in mind, and you work towards that. Whereas I kind of do it backwards. First of all, if you're going to start with a fixed goal, you should work backwards from that, not towards it from the beginning. If you start with, I need an abstrusa, you then work backwards with logical regression towards an undefined starting point, which in your creative is the end point in this, but you know what I mean. So you need an abstrusa. What does an abstrusa need? And work backwards. But too often I think it's, I'm going to build something that ends up being an abstrusa. So I think that one limits the creative process, as well as makes you have blinders to some amazing things that could happen just because of where you let your imagination wander. Now, obviously you can take that too far in any direction, but point being, create your whatever. If it's a character, create it. If it's an institution, create it. If it's a position like mayor or king or prince or whatever, create it. And then start filling that with things that make sense. Make a backstory for it. Let the backstory guide you. Even during the creation of the character, let each decision that you make inform the next decision. A cascading happening of events that, while hopefully leads to a logical conclusion, doesn't always take a logical path. A path that's not planned, a path that is organic and happens because that's what happened, because that's the way your particular thought processes, neural pathways, reality tunnels shape it to be what it is, rather than what you want it to be, envision it to be, think it is. Let it be what it is. And that's very very subjective, obviously, and probably somewhat esoteric. And regardless, let the process guide you. Let each choice inform the next choice. And if you have any questions about any of that, then just, holla at your boy, as it were. And we can talk about it. Until then, algorithm dance, notification bell, like, comment, subscribe, share. The commenting is a big thing. Engagement, back and forth. Help us grow the channel so that we can put more time and effort into giving gooder, better videos with higher production value and more often. But until then, do the thing, do the dance, and we'll see you next time.